Hello there. Welcome to Art School Live. I'm Kathleen Hudson, and I'm your guest host while Eric is in China. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from John Lintott. He's an artist based in Colorado, along with me, and I want to give him a warm welcome to the show. Hi, John. What are you going to teach us today?
Hi, Kathleen. I'm going to be just working on a lesson of basically composition and design and using those to make a really strong piece and hopefully a successful piece.
Excellent. Well, without further ado, let's get this show started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhodes.
So yes, as you can see, I'm not Eric Rhodes, I'm Kathleen Hudson. So today, again, our guest is John Lintott, based in Colorado. He's going to be teaching us how to design successful paintings and how to really nail the composition. We'll be able to see a few of his paintings here. Look how the eye leads back up into the distance, thanks to this beautiful ravine with the waterfall. He does this in every single painting. He just focuses on nailing the design and on creating a center of interest, a place for the eye to land. So that's something that he's going to talk about today during the next hour. And so we're in for a real treat. Hi, John. I think John's also going to do a studio tour first, which is also a joy.
Yes. Yeah, and this is the work of getting up really early and trying to clean my studio because it was really a mess this morning. I'm kind of between trips, but this is, I don't know, you can see pretty well.
Wow. I see that Crested Butte piece too.
Yep. Yeah. And then over here, I just have like storage and all my junk and frames and some other little studies over here. But yeah, so, and then this is my palette here. Hope you can see that.
Yes.
This is the little 10 by 12 panel I'll be working on today. And there is that. Let me find my little marks here to put this back down. And there we go. Okay, and I think that did it. And
yes, and John makes a lot of his own frames. So some of those hanging on the wall, he's not only painted, but created custom frames for, I'm sure.
Yes, there's a few up here right now that are awaiting transportation to Crested Butte, so later today. So
excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do. What do you do when you start a painting? I know you're working small today because of time constraints.
Yeah. When I start a painting, my first process is trying to get a really rendered value sketch. And I try to get that as accurately as possible. I don't ever grid my pieces, even when I'm working larger. I've done it a couple times, and it's just, for me, it's just too time consuming. What I will do though is I use one of these little guys, and I will literally look at my computer screen and measure something, how far across it is, and then I will go to my actual whatever panel I'm working on, and it's usually I have to double it, and I just do that mental calculation and then make my little marks wherever they need to start. And then that allows me to maintain a sense of accuracy in my drawing when I'm blowing something up larger. Something like this, I'm probably just gonna wing it and not use my trusty little tape measure.
That makes sense. Yeah, 10 by 12 is about as big as your computer screen probably is anyway. So what's your subject that you're painting?
Today I'm working on a little wash that's in a national conservation area near my house, the McGinnis Canyons National Conservation Area. And there's a trail that goes up this wash, and this one day that I was up there, it had rained like maybe the night before or 2 nights before. So there's this really nice element of a little water trickling through the bottom of the wash. And the time of day was morning, and so most of the piece is in shadow. So you get a nice contrast to that water reflecting the sky, and a little sunbeam against the hill in the background. So it's something that definitely, like you said, I do try to create paintings that allow you to wander your eye, and this one's definitely in line with that.
Excellent. Well, we're excited to see what you come up with.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I will spin this around. And there's my panel. And I believe that there is, I don't know if they show the image on there, but I will go ahead and just get started here.
Oh, that is a cool reference. I like how that little bit of water is going to reflect the sky color.
Yeah. It was, you know, there's been a couple of times where I've been up in that area, and I just am blown away by the luck of timing, of being at the right place at the right time, and seeing what, you know, almost nobody gets to see, because 90% of the time when somebody goes up into there, there's not going to be any water at all. And right now I'm just kind of laying out some of these hills here, just the horizon line. And of course, it's not exactly a flat horizon line. And I'm just starting with getting some of these bigger shapes in.
Do you typically undertone the canvas with a neutral gray? It looks like it's fairly neutral.
Yeah, I like to. It varies from, honestly, it varies between what paint I have, like what extra tubes I find somewhere. It's not usually, sometimes I'll mix something, but it's usually I vary from like sort of a purplish to a gray to like a warm ochre with a little cad red in it. But it's also something that I do it because I really like to be able to not have just stark white showing through, where if I have two masses of paint that come together and say they don't touch, and there's a little bit of the underpainting showing, it's a lot less distracting for me than just seeing the bright white of the gesso. And sometimes it can really work. Sometimes it can really work in favor of the piece if it's kind of a nice complementary color to, you know, what the motif of the color motif of the piece is.
And is your underpainting color chosen for some reason as well? Looks like you've got a little bit of a purplish tint to it.
Yeah, this usually when I start a piece, when I just do my sketching, I just use ultramarine blue and cad red light. And so sometimes it'll show a little bit more on the purple side, sometimes it'll show a little bit more on the brown side. But I like just kind of that middle. It's easy to make dark values. It's easy to, like, you can go in and get a really dark little area like that in, or up here, or you can thin it out and it becomes just a nice, you know, value tone, but that isn't as dark.
It's fun watching this develop. You've already got some really good, strong diagonals in your shapes.
You know, when you're using diagonals, I mean, whatever you're using in the piece, it is what sets the tone of the piece. If I had a piece that I just want to be super calm, most things are going to be just completely horizontal, and this isn't one of those pieces. So this is going to be kind of a dramatic piece. And I personally, I love drama in paintings. You know, I'm drawn more towards paintings that have a lot of drama. I try to emulate that when I do my own, just because. But every now and then it's good to do like a contemplative painting too, and have something that's very peaceful and quiet, serene.
Mm-hmm. I can relate.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to give your brain a break.
I do love the approach of isolating value first, because it makes the process of painting, I think, so much more straightforward if you can kind of break it down into sections. It's hard if you're trying to just, paint from a focal area out in a landscape, or paint in full color with the full paint tube consistency oil
Yeah.
paint from the jump. Then I struggle with that kind of approach, because then you're having to think about everything at once: value, design, color, texture, brushwork. I mean, all the things that we work with. But if you can do a thin kind of transparent underpainting first, then you've made good decisions on value and composition, and you don't have to think about those things as much later on.
Yeah, and I agree. When I do my value sketch, it is really just thin paint, and when I go into doing my block in, that is still a little bit more thinned. But after my block in, even with my block in, I try and get as much information down initially as I can. And then that allows me, once I kind of do my final pass, to really punch areas that I want to punch with a lot of, dramatic texture, impasto, or leave some areas kind of thin, just depending on what, the piece feels like it needs.
Mm-hmm. I've got some folks asking what your substrate is, which linen or what kind of.
So I use like 1/8" hardboard, and then I do a layer of, I use a little foam roller, and I first do a layer of acrylic matte medium, and that just kind of seals that surface of the hardboard so that nothing can kind of travel through. And then I'll do 2 coats of gesso. I've experimented with both using a roller as well as a brush. And I think what I've ended up, I think I ended up liking a brush a little bit more. The gesso that I use is very thick. So this panel here, I've sanded a lot. And then I even went back over it with a brush. It was just too rough when I was using just the roller. So I sanded it, and then I kind of enjoy using the brush, because you can really feather it and get it as minimal as you can. I used to just really dive into it, and it looked crazy, and had a lot of texture just in the gesso. And then I started getting a bunch of comments on Facebook about how that was so prominent and everybody liked it, and I'm thinking, yeah, but it's not part of my painting. It was just a gesso. So I kind of stopped doing it because of that. But I wanted to better communicate what I was trying to do, and I think I was kind of it was counterproductive. But it's live and learn every day.
Yeah, Josh Elliott and George Strickland both do something similar, where they get a hardboard and then coat that with gesso instead of mounting linen.
Yeah, I like the idea of linen. I've painted on it a few times, but I just feel like ultimately, since I'm making my own panels, I feel like I can achieve the same effect with just painting directly onto the hardboard and foregoing any sort of you know, canvas or linen or whatever.
It does make it a lot easier to travel with things, to not worry about the glue separating, because that's
Yes.
definitely a problem with, mounting linen onto hardboard.
Yeah, and I've always heard like so many different ways of like what glue should you use, and you know, somebody at the very end just told me that like you can just use Elmer's glue and Elmer's white glue, and I was,
Yep.
you know, it's like, well, is that really pretty archival or? And so it was just, I ended up just saying like, what the heck, I'm just gonna forego all that. And like right now, I've kind of got the shapes that I want, the angles and everything. So right now I'm just kind of gonna get this filled in with sort of closer to the value that I want, because it, like I said, it's a very dark value, kind of heavy piece, and it'll allow me to get it definitely helps once you're really getting into the blocking in phase to know where your darks and lights are. And
That band of light across the top is going to be really fun to paint, I imagine. That's the type of thing I look for in compositions too.
yeah, it's fun to have like a real pop area and have, have something that's just a powerhouse of the piece. If it's like, even for as highly dramatic with angles as this piece is, in my mind, because there's so much of it that's going to be in shadow, and there's just going to be this little tick of light over here and this sort of higher beam over here. In my mind, it's kind of a quiet piece, even though it's got all this, all these different angles, but there's an element though that I'm going to have this little rock right here,
Mhm.
and this rock over here. And I mean, this is where it really goes nicely with the sort of rule of thirds. Um, you can't go wrong when you base a painting on thirds. You can always tweak it, but that's one of the things that really helps with, um, bettering your percentage of having a successful piece.
Mhm. And you've done a good job of not repeating shapes, and I think that's a big challenge, especially if you've got a composition that has a lot of rocks in it. Um,
Yeah,
it's so easy to make those rocks look like little identical eggs, you know,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. And it's it's very difficult, even when you're painting anything that has like a boulder field. That's where it's like you really gotta spend time on each rock like it's a portrait, so they don't all look the same. So I think that that's going to be where I want to end up with my value sketch. I think that's enough information for me to start. As I say that, I'll continue to do a few things. All right.
So you've got the 1/8 inch hardboard for this size. For larger work, do you use a cradled board, or how do you approach panels for
Yeah,
larger work?
if I'm using a larger piece, and it really has to be pretty large. I mean, if you have a good frame, the frame will really stiffen and support the 1/8 inch hardboard. But once you get anything bigger than like 30 by 40, I would say,
Hmm.
I like to cradle it, and I'll still use the 1/8 inch because once you move up to like the 3/16, which is almost a 1/4 inch, it really gets heavy. And
Hmm.
then then that just directly affects all the rest of um, the structure of the piece that you're going to do. It affects the wiring that you're going to have to use. It affects the frame and everything else. But the 1/8 inch is really nice, and when you cradle it with, I use poplar. Usually, I'll just rip poplar sticks, and it's a really nice. Uh, what is it? I've heard it's a softwood that mills like a hardwood, or a
Hmm.
hardwood that mills like a softwood. I mean, but so I think my next thing now is I'm going to jump into just kind of getting some of these darker colors in here to start, and then I'll kind of move into which I am going to kind of start in this area. And I've got some colors pre-mixed here. Ones that I'm using now, these really dark ones, are pretty much just ultramarine blue and cad red light. And so I've got one version that's a little cooler, so it kind of comes across as more black like this. And then
Hmm.
one that's a little redder, and so it's got a little warmth to it.
Yeah, that reads beautifully.
And I don't know about you, but I'll have people ask me, you know, how do you paint stuff so quickly? And boy, in my mind, I sure don't feel like I paint things quickly. I feel like I take forever. And maybe I do, but the thoughts that are going through my mind as I paint are so many that sometimes it can be really exhausting. And so what may be, 40 minutes for somebody feels like 3 hours for me, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense,
Totally. No,
but
I think most people, especially those who have painted plein air, have had that experience where it really is mentally. There's a big mental load involved in painting, and if you're painting outside, there are other considerations because you're dealing with light changes, possible weird light on your palette or your canvas. There's so much that goes into it. It always makes me laugh when somebody walks by and says, "Oh, that must be so relaxing." I'm sure you've gotten that feedback before. It's common for me. I'm
yeah,
like, do I
yeah,
look relaxed?
yeah. Hey, you fake it till you make it, right?
There we go.
It's it's like when you're plein air painting, not only are you dealing with all of your internal struggles like you do in the studio, but you're
Hmm.
also dealing with all of the external struggles of just being outside, whether it's too hot, whether it's windy, whether it's raining, whether there's bugs, and it can pile up pretty quick.
Hmm. It does. We've had somebody ask if you do no tans or thumbnails initially when you're outside.
Um, I like to. My the way I do sketches is I do just with a pencil, and it's really loose. I'm just focusing on design and like placement of things and value. I'm not trying to get a super rendered sketch. I'm like literally drawing, circles and darkening them and going like that. I do I do highly subscribe to the importance of doing sketches before, because it allows you to play around with composition before you get invested. And that is, I mean, a lot of the time, that's what makes or breaks a painting is if you're able to get a piece that's, if you're able to do three little tiny versions of the same scene, and you like how far you've pushed a bush or a rock somewhere in whatever direction, that is really the kind of the best way to do it, because it allows you to make that choice initially, rather than, at the end when you're like, oh, that tree is bothering me now because I didn't move it. It should be over here.
It makes total sense. And it, like you said, it's easier to do that in stages where you're dealing with transparent paint and you can, wipe a section out instead of having to scrape down thick opaque paint.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is like for my block-in phase, which is probably, I'll be lucky, if I get through this whole thing with blocking this in. Hopefully I can. But for me, it's this part of it is kind of my initial gut reaction to a scene. And then once I jump in, I'm able to really kind of assess, after I've blocked it in, what changes I need to make, primarily with like temperature and color issues. Usually I get all of my, usually I'm able to get all of my design choices and stuff done so that I'm not already made, so that I'm not doing anything really drastic once I'm doing my final sort of pass on the piece. I think that if you're struggling with a piece out, especially out in the field, and you're realizing, wow, this composition really isn't working because I didn't do this or I didn't do this, that's where it's it's okay to take your losses and stop or scrape it and start something new. And I think that's that's a balance that you learn as you go, is not everything has to be a really wonderful finished piece out in the field. Sometimes you can have a horrible piece that's got really very little success to it, but it can be extremely important for you as the artist because of some element of color or some other part, like minuscule part that you see that you could apply to other pieces.
Yeah, it's been liberating for me to think of plein air painting as color notes instead of feeling any kind of pressure to develop some sort of finished, polished piece outside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the success rate out in the field is not what we make it seem.
Yeah, the plein air events, I think, give people maybe a little bit of a rosy sense of what we're often doing outside.
People what worked. We're simply showing people what worked. We're not showing them everything.
That's right.
And it's okay. It's not a taboo. It's we're learning just like the next person. I'm learning every single time I pick up a brush. And it's you when you've been doing it for close to 30 years, you can at least say, wow, you know, I can go into this with some confidence.
Right.
But it's, you know, every now and then you get humbled real quick.
Yep. Well, nature is the best teacher. That's why we keep
Oh
going
yeah,
outside. It is humbling though.
very much so. And it's and I'm glad it is, because it should stay that way. I think the moment it gets easy every time is the moment I'll lose interest.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we have some questions about the colors you're using now. I see you brought it. Are you still just using the Cad Red Light and
So,
Ultramarine, or have you
so now some
introduced
of these
something else?
cooler colors, I've like, well, let me start with these lighter tans here. Those are a little Cad Red Light, a little alizarin crimson, as well as some yellow ochre and a little touch of ultramarine blue, just kind of gray it up a little. And then this is more of a Cad Red Light and cobalt blue. And I'll go over the colors that I use really quick, if that's all right. The colors I use on my palette are from my palette left to right. My warm colors are on my left, so I use alizarin crimson, followed by Cad Red Light. Then I use yellow ochre, Cad Yellow Medium, Cad Yellow Light, and then I use titanium white. And then on my cool side, I use cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue. And that allows me to mix everything. I love being able to mix my own greens, and I used to use sap green, and someone told me that all my greens started looking the same, and so then I ditched it and started mixing all my greens, and just it was like opening the door to a whole new world.
I ditched that one too because I have Indian yellow on the palette, and if you mix Indian yellow and ultramarine blue, it makes like a full dupe for sap green. So it's not really a color I need to carry around since it's so easy to mix.
Yeah, it's, I don't know what it is. I think I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to process. I really enjoy the process of so many aspects of painting, not just like the, you know, painting in the final scene. I really enjoy the color mixing. I enjoy the texture. I enjoy having a hand in all of that. And so like right now, this is just a little white and phthalo blue.
Ooh.
And
Look at
this is
that.
just to kind of give me an idea of where I want this little stream going, so that I can make some decisions about it later.
And you all notice the lost and found. So he's not going to draw a line all the way back. He's going to have some breaks where the viewer's eye has to do the work of connecting it.
Yeah, that's important. I think that it's so important as an artist not to explain everything. I think that when you do explain everything, I lose interest, because it's no longer like a cognitive piece for me, if that makes any sense. It's more of like, you know, wow, this is handled well, but you know, I don't want to say anything mean. I don't want to say sometimes it looks like somebody's showing off. because you know what, they should be showing off. There's so much with regards to like realistic painting and stuff that there's just no way I could do. I've tried. I don't have the capacity to do super realistic stuff. So what I try to focus on is just making sure that I have my composition, my values, and my color to be accurate and convincing. And so now I'm just darkening darkening this little bit here. There's an interesting thing with when you're looking at reflected water, how the closer you are to it, the darker it is, because it's reflecting directly up above you. And when you're looking at something that goes out further, it's reflecting the sky closer to the horizon, and so it's going to be lighter out here and darker down here. And there's a number of ways you can play with that. But yeah, as far as color, I really do enjoy mixing all my stuff. It just adds the, there's so much in life you have so little control over. So at least I get to mix my own colors.
That's right. It's a really good point about the gradient that you see with sky and then sky reflected in water. I think it's something that we don't necessarily always notice, but it's always there. So when I'm starting a painting, I look for it. And I try to say, okay, what's the shift? There's almost always a warmer, lighter band closer to the horizon. And that's because warm light travels further through your atmosphere. And whereas blue light, ultramarine especially, like scatters overhead. And so it's fascinating to learn about how that works and then see it in nature.
Yeah, and it's important to, when you start a piece, it's important to like look for those things first, because those are some of the best ways to make a piece convincing, is to make sure that you're really hitting your things that naturally occur in nature first. So now let's see. And some of this is, you get some points of interest in, and then you can, in this block in phase, you can kind of just jump into getting some real estate covered.
Susan mentions that she just checked out your website and recommends people go there to see your work. I concur.
Oh, thank you very much.
And you can also be, you can follow John on Instagram. It's John Lintott Art, correct?
Yep.
So yeah, that's definitely worth your time as you all are watching now.
And thank you to everybody that does that. I do any of the news workshops or anything, shows, I will do on my little newsletter, and feel free to sign up for it if you'd like. It's I don't blast everybody. I usually do once a month if I'm lucky. So if I remember it. All right.
We had a question about whether you're thinning your paint.
Yeah, so right now, in the block-in, I do thin my paint with turpentine, and then after that, I will switch in my final phase to this Gamblin 𝙤𝙤𝙢𝙤𝙤. I don't know if they still make it. I think it's they've rebranded it like a.
Yeah, they did. They now sell it in tubes, and it is 𝘿𝙤𝙤 light gel. I just learned that because I was like trying to order 𝙤𝙤𝙢𝙤 from England because I couldn't find it at any retailer in the States. And then I managed to find a blog post on the Gamblin website where they announced that, but they didn't say it loudly, so it took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah, totally. It was same thing with the the decision that was made in a few states to not ship the terpenoid natural anymore.
Oh, I know, that's been a bummer. I had
Yeah,
my
that was
mom
a
order
bummer.
a bunch in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's it's interesting, and I guess, I mean, it's so non-toxic and inert. However, it expands really easily, and so that's why they
Mhm.
were having to pop open. All right, and
Those green notes really make the red sing, don't they?
yeah, it's nice to use these little complementary colors in here and get some and this is, again, this is just still all working on the in the shadows, which is always so much fun uh to spend time defining your shadows and defining um what because there's a whole story of what's going on in the shadows, and you can really have some wonderful things going on that are so subtle, and then pretty soon it's going to get completely contrasted by what's going to end up going on up here. And I would say, to sort of finish answering that question, I thin my paints with the Neo the last of the Neo McGill before I have to buy something different.
Mhm.
Um, and then I also, I'll also just use straight paint when it's towards the very end, just to get the thickness and the impasto texture that I want in certain areas. I think it's important for people to realize that it's so important to consciously have those decisions, even down to how thick you want to you paint in a certain area, or how bright of a big chunk of paint you want to put in one area. Everything about it, every step of the way, is decisions,
Mhm.
and it's really important to that's why, in my mind, it takes so long. I'm constantly, even in blocking in, I'm constantly making decisions of where I want things to be, or uh, sort of what the temperature, what the values should be, placement. It's all an important part of it.
Mhm. For sure. This is looking wonderful. You've got about 5 minutes left in this section of the demo. So if you want to tell people what you're going to do as you carry this piece forward, I'm sure they'd love to hear about the process.
Sure. Literally, one of the things I'll do next um, is I'll focus on some of these transition areas where you have the light getting ready to hit everything in the darkness here that you're working on, or that I'm working on, and that will allow me to kind of set the stage for what I want to do next. And so, just to kind of give a hint, in these last 5 minutes, I'll try and get some of this stuff in the background here, and may not make a whole lot of sense yet, but once I get some of these in, one thing I can do really quick is I'm going to have a really strong note here.
Ooh, dropping that highlight in. I like it.
Yeah, just to, this is going to be, and even this, I'm going to come back and I'm going to make some variations. It's just not going to be this big bright thing.
Mhm.
I will say that if anyone wants to see this when it's finished, I will likely be working on it once I get back from Crested Butte, and I will be posting it on my website, and likely social media as well. Another
Oh,
really quick
good.
thing is making sure, once you get into here, that you can get some of these reflected lights in. Those are really important because
Oh,
they're
yeah.
kind of bouncing off here. And even with this, I do like to get a little bit of a warm barrier here where I'm going to have this little area, and you can do sort of a neat little, reddish, warm, super warm purple, lavender, or whatever. And then that'll be followed by, this end of the shadows here.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great point about pushing the chroma right along the transition from light to shadow.
Yeah.
You do a great job of that in your work.
Uh,
Kim English also does that a lot, I've noticed, and really pushes chroma right along that shadow edge. Makes it
it,
sing.
yeah, it makes it, it just gives it such a more, I guess, natural line there where you've got stuff that's how many times have you looked at a cliff wall and it's being cast a shadow on from something far away? So you've got this really blurred line, and right in that little section between light and the shadow, it's just this wonderfully, almost like a rainbow of like purples and warms and cools, and I dig that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm. And do you have any shows coming up, any workshops that you'd like to share about?
I am
A
I
lot of shows.
yeah, I do online workshops. I don't know if I can, how much I can say that here, but I also, you can find out on my website. And then I've got the Plein Painters of America show. We have that coming up in the end of this month, beginning of August, and that's going to be a really fun one in Crested Butte, Colorado. And I just I still have a piece in the California Art Club Gold Medal exhibition, which I'm really, really honored to have had a piece go into that.
Mm-hmm.
And Governor's Show just came down, so I'm kind of in a holding pattern until the Crested Butte show, where I'm going to be really just taking the time to go out in the field and paint. So I'm excited about that too, just to have a break.
Totally. Yeah, well, me too. I'll see you there, which will be fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, anybody watching, if you have a chance to travel to Crested Butte at the very first of August, we'll have all the Plein Painters of America will be there that whole week painting, and then the show opens August 1st. So that'll be a really cool one to see. There will be 150 paintings by members of the organization, and it's the biggest show we've had in a long time, I think. So
Yeah,
I'm
I think we have
thrilled
more
to see it.
numbers of members involved than in a long time. A lot of
Mhm.
emeritus members, and so it should be a ball.
Definitely. Oh, this is glowing. Great job,
Oh,
John.
thanks. Um, yeah, this every painting has a sailor phase where you want to take it off the easel and huck it like a frisbee and watch it sail across. This
I
one,
was
I
wondering
think,
where that was going.
yeah, this one is definitely in that phase for me. But it's also one of those things where you just gotta push through it. That's 90% of being an artist, is pushing through the parts that are really frustrating, and through that frustration you usually find something that works, you learn something new, and it's I thoroughly enjoy that phase of it. And right now I'm just going to hit another little bit of this where it's going to go back, and the last little part that I liked about this was you've got some of these colors back here, and then there's just one more little bit of light right there in the stream that kind of matches everything that's going on up here.
That's a really nice note. Well, this is looking great, John. I'm looking forward to seeing the resulting piece later on once you get back. That'll be fun. Everybody watching, be sure to follow John so you get to see the end result here.
Yeah, give me like hopefully a week I can get it. I'll be back and can do it. I think I got kids that we're flying out to see their sibling in Maine. And while they're doing that, my wife and I are going to go camp in Crested Butte while I paint, and it's going to be a fun time.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really valuable. Got a lot of great comments from viewers, so I know other folks found value in it too.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, you all watching, I hope you enjoyed John's demo. Don't forget to go to his website. It's johnlintott.com. And then you can follow him on Instagram at johnlintottart. You can also follow me if you'd like to. My website's KathleenBHudson.com. And on Instagram, it's at KathleenBHudson. We have some gifts for you. So you can download the free video. It's 97 Incredible Art Secrets. If you go to 97incredibleartsecrets.com/ASL. You can also sign up for Gouache Live. It's time to do that soon because main stage tickets start at only $47. And then it's coming up pretty quickly on August 22nd. We have an incredible lineup of instructors, and they'll teach you about gouache painting. You really don't want to miss this. You can sign up at gouachelive.com. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's Art School Live on YouTube and then at Eric Rhodes on Instagram. Thank you, and I will see you tomorrow.